We have so many stories in our lives, but our stories are not always heard. On the Hear My True Story podcast, we tell our own true stories.
Before the white car parked, our head teacher had scattered. Looking at him, I could only see his tie that was flying backwards, waving at us, and he disappeared in thin air.
I want to share my life story. I want to share my voice with the people because I know that just a small joke I can tell through this podcast, it will make someone smile.
When you ask me what I fear most in life, I would definitely respond to you and say it's fear itself.
We are fighting for togetherness. We are fighting for equal rights. We are fighting to end injustice.
You don't have to be a storyteller or writer because, guess what? Life writes the best stories.
Hear my true story.
As the journey continued, I noticed the kids playing a game with a map of Africa. Then one of the kids pointed and asked, "What is this?" The mother replied, "That's Africa." And the kid asked, "What is Africa?" And then the mother said, "Africa is a country."
This is your favorite time of the week with your number one podcast.
Hear my true story.
Yes, my dear listeners, welcome back to Hear My True Story podcast. It is me, your host Otako, and I'm happy to have you this wonderful week. Well, today I'm going to talk about some wonderful, interesting topic. I'm not going to give you facts about it, but I'm going to raise questions from my personal experiences as a father, as a parent. Parenting, that is so challenging. It comes with a lot of challenges. Actually, it depends where you are raising your child from. Well, for me, I'm here in Germany, meaning it's another culture for me because I come from another cultural background, meaning I have another international cultural parenting background. Then I'm living in Germany where I make also other parenting experiences. So my dear listeners, I hope that you enjoy this wonderful situation that I go through as a parent, but as a father, that maybe sometimes I make with my daughter as we are experiencing our time. Thank you so much, my dear listeners. I hope you enjoy this wonderful conversation.
With you every week. Hear my true story.
I was on a train with my wife and daughter when we met another family with 2 kids. The kids were friendly and made eye contact with me. I smiled back to them and said hello. One of the kids started to chat with me, but the mother quickly stopped them, saying, "You don't have to talk to everyone on a train." The child kept looking at me, showing interest in communicating. But the mother remained firm. This made me wonder why someone discouraged their kids from interacting with other strangers in a safe or maybe in a public place that looks safe for the child. As the journey continued, I noticed the kids playing a game with a map of Africa. Then one of the kids pointed and asked, "What is this?" The mother replied, "That's Africa." And the kid asked, "What is Africa?" And then the mother said, "Africa is a country." I was tempted to correct the mother, but I held back, respecting her decision to limit our interaction. Later, at another train station, my daughter started communicating with another stranger. Unlike the previous mother, I encouraged her to say hello. I told her, "Please go and say hello to the person." We ended up having a pleasant conversation with the person who also had a child, although not in the same age bracket like my daughter. We shared stories. I also got to learn that person speaks English with their kid. At the same time, I also speak English with my daughter, although we all live in Germany. See how interesting it was? It was because my kid started a conversation with a stranger, hence getting to know each other. This experience made me reflect on parenting styles. Social interactions in life are very important for children. And as parents, we should guide them in how to communicate rather than to discourage the kids. Parenting is full of surprises, I'm telling you, my dear listeners. For now, my daughter, she loves going to the playground. And I enjoy watching her play in the sand, climbing, jumping on the trampoline. While there, I often also observe other parents and their interaction with their kids. So, one day, I saw a parent who brought toys for their children to play with in the sand. Naturally, kids are curious. They like to discover and they want to share and play together. But this particular parent did not want their kids to share the toys with others. It made me think about the importance of sharing, for sure. I always encourage my daughter that if she wants to use something else that she doesn't have, and she sees that another kid brought that at the playground, just go and ask. If that person allows you to play with the toy, then you can play with it. Because, sharing helps the children to learn social skills and also make friends. But seeing a parents who refuse to let their children share anything made me realize that our personal behaviors can unconsciously influence our kids. My dear listeners, I know some of you are listening are parents, but since I'm a parent now, I get to realize that parenting is challenging. And while at the same time it's important to protect our children, we should also encourage them to share and interact with other kids. This helps them to develop the skills, the essential skills that they need in their lives. I am telling you because maybe I've got to pay attention to certain things. I know some parents bring their kids to the public playgrounds, but don't want them to play with other kids. I find this puzzling. If you are at a playground, why not let your child interact with other kids on the playground? From my experience, going to the playground with my daughter is an opportunity to meet other parents and learn about their lives. It is also a chance for the kids to play together and develop social skills. If I stopped my daughter from playing with other kids, we would both miss out on those valuable interactions. I remember one particular day when a child showed interest in playing with my daughter. Through this interaction, I got to know the child's parents. We exchanged stories. We learned about each other's lives. This connection was only possible because we allowed our children to play together. Isolating your child from others can hinder their social development. That is true. I'm talking this because maybe I'm a person with a background of pedagogy, of working with children. But also I believe that it is important, it is crucial to let kids be kids, to let them explore and make friends. This openness helps them to grow and learn about the world around them. I remember last weekend, I'm in the month of June 2024. So last weekend, while I was on a train, I noticed a parent who spent their entire ride on their phone, ignoring their child. This made me think about how often this happens at playgrounds too. Parents bring their kids to play, but spend most of their time on their phones, missing out the most precious moments. When I'm on a playground, I leave my phone in the pocket and focus on my daughter. I watch what interests her, jumping, climbing, or playing in the sand, or maybe talking to other people. These moments are important for her development and our bond, me and her to bond together. These are the precious moments. It's not only that I think of being on the phone, but however, since I started living in Germany as a parent, I have noticed that parents get very anxious if their kids cry in public. But crying is a natural way for children to express their emotions and needs. When a child cries, it's not a problem. It is a form of communication. And this also goes to the people around. If you see a child crying, don't take it as a big problem. Don't take it as it's bothering your business. You're in a public space, a child is crying. It's okay, let the child cry. The mother is there or the caretaker is there. They are trying to communicate with the kid. But people take it as a big issue. I remember a time at the playground when a child started crying, then the parent was frustrated, trying to quiet them down. But crying is okay. It is how children release their emotions and tell us what they need. It is part of their communication. But my dear listeners, these are just some of the highlight moments that I have made as a parent too. It is so interesting raising a child as a parent living in Germany with a international cultural background. You get to learn a lot. But the most important thing that I realize is that it is important for us as parents to encourage social interaction for our children. Let the children be children. Let them talk to people. If the child shows the interest of talking to a stranger, encourage them. Sharing is part of life. Encourage the kids to share. If your child wants to share something, let them share. If your child is asking to play with a toy that she didn't bring with, let her go, encourage her, go to ask for it. If they give it to her, it's okay. If they don't give it to her, it is also okay. It's part of life. Let the children play with peers. If your child is showing interest to play with other kids, well, my dear parent, let the child play with other kids, because that is very important for their development in various areas. For example, communication skills, social skills. But also another thing I got to learn is that for us as parents, myself, is to be there, be present, be active in the moments with my kid. That is very important. I know things that can distract us sometimes. We can't avoid them like phones. Well, try hard by yourself too. Be there, be active, available when your child is doing such things like playing in the sand, jumping on the trampoline, maybe climbing. Those things are important for you to observe them. Perhaps you learn a lot from that. So at the end of it all, this experience has made me reflect on the challenges and responsibilities of parenting. So here's my question for all of you who are listening perhaps to this wonderful episode today on Hear My True Story. Are today's parenting methods too restrictive, or are they simply adapting to new challenges? How can we find a balance that promotes health, social development for our children? How do we deal with this? Well, anyway, I don't have answers for that. Perhaps my dear listeners can also think about these questions. Well, I want to say, my dear listener, thank you so much for listening to Hear My True Story podcast. It has been me, Otako, your host. I'm always happy to share my personal experiences. And well, my dear listeners, if you're interested in listening to this wonderful podcast, Hear My True Story podcast, go on to the description. Send us a text. Let us know how you feel about this episode. Well, every feedback that we get makes us to do more episodes. Maybe you can also say, thank you for doing such a wonderful episode, and I'll be happy. It will make me stronger, and also it will give me an opportunity to create more content for you guys who are listening. Thank you so much, and I would like to say bye for now. Till next week. It has been me, Otako, your host.
We not only have voices for a podcast, but also faces for YouTube. Don't miss your next episode. Hear My True Story.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, Music by Edwin Matovo, hosted and produced by Otako. Subscribe to our podcast for more stories and visit us on our website, hearmytruestory.com, for more stories. All the links are listed in the show notes of this podcast.